about visualization, right? I mean, that that's visualization. You're visualizing that world record. Talk about how that became part of your process and why you think it's so helpful.
I mean, for me, when I got to a swim meet, there's nothing that I can control at that point, right? I can control what I do and how I prepare, sort of getting up behind the block and just racing. I can't control what anybody else does. So for me, I want to know how the race could go, how I don't want the race to go, and in a perfect world, how the race should go. Because it all goes back to preparation. If you're not preparing yourself before the meet, you're not going to get a time you deserve. So for me, I have to make sure I'm doing all the work leading up to a big meet so that I get behind the block and I don't have to think about anything else. I'm not worried about how I prepared. So I started visualizing at like 13, 14, just so everything around me was taken care of when I got to a meet, so I could be completely relaxed. So when I put my headphones on, all I'm thinking about is the music. I get to go up and just do what I practiced to do. All of those countless hours of staring at the black line at the bottom of the pool, that was for this moment. So I just never really thought when I got behind the block and let everything do what was supposed to happen. If I didn't get the results that I wanted, then I would just go back to the drawing board. And that's really just how I worked my whole life. But I mean, visualizing just, it just mentally prepares you and you can kind of check that box off. And I think that's what we wanted to do. Every time we got to a major international competition, we wanted to check off as many boxes as we could. Because if we did that, then what else do we have to worry about? Everything else is just going to happen naturally.
We start with relaxation techniques and putting your mind in a place where you can actually visualize effectively. I know when Michael was young, I gave his mom a book of progressive relaxation, and before he would go to bed at night, she would go in and read this progression of things to do, like clench your fists, take
basically,
you through
it's like you work through your whole
body. And actually it got so good, she'd just open the book, say 2 things, and he'd be asleep. He got really good at relaxing. So once you can put yourself in a relaxed state, then I tell them it's like watching a movie. It's essentially what it is. Sometimes it's like you're sitting in the stands watching yourself swim. And sometimes it's like you're in the water swimming. The key to visualization is, number one, it has to be very vivid. It has to be rehearsed many, many times. And the reason it works is because the brain cannot distinguish between something that's really vividly visualized and something that's real. So by the time Michael steps up on the block to swim a race in a World Championships or Olympic Games, he's swum that race hundreds of times in his mind before he gets up there. So then when he gets up, all he has to do is shut everything down and it goes on autopilot. His body automatically knows what to do. The brain just switches into what he's visualized. And that's what's really powerful about visualization.
When I would visualize, it would be what you want it to be, what you don't want it to be, what it could be.
Yeah.
So it's like you're always ready for anything that comes your way. So it's like if I would have a suit rip, fine, I need another suit, put it on. Like any small thing that could go wrong, I'm ready for.
I mean, the biggest thing I think that really separated me through my career was my mental game. Everything that was in between my ears. Like for me, it's just, I eventually got to the point where I was competing against myself because I was so hard on myself. And, for me to improve, I had to get stronger mentally, and I had to find a way to do it. And I think my coach helped me get through that process and learn more. So for me, like when I would visualize, I visualize every single, getting up to a meet, I would visualize probably a month or so in advance, just of what could happen, what I want to happen, and what I don't want to happen. Because when it happened, I was prepared for it.
Maybe you need to practice visualization to rehearse mentally. Does anybody here visualize? It's very important. It's critical skill. You know why? And what happens is your subconscious and your conscious will move to the mental picture that is strongest. So if your picture is, I'm not all that good, but I'm a pretty good swimmer, that's the way you're going to be. If your picture is, I'm the Olympic champion, I will do whatever it takes to get there, I will think about it all the time, I will visualize myself doing it, I will see myself doing it, that's where things start to move. Visualization is key in any sort of goal-oriented activity. The best person in the world of visualization, I promise, is Michael Phelps, in any sport, in anything, and I can tell you why. Michael came to me, before the Beijing Olympics, and he's always been good at visualization. I've encouraged him to do it. I taught him how to do it in a little thing, and he runs constant videos in his heads of his races, and he'll run them like he's sitting in the stands watching himself swim. He'll watch it like he'll see a visualization like he's swimming, what it looks like while he's swimming, and then he'll visualize what happens if something goes wrong in my race. What if somebody swims differently than I think they will? What if I don't go out as quickly as I want? How will I overcome those things? So he visualizes all of that, and he programs himself so that when he gets up to race, he doesn't have to think about it. He's just got this bank of visualization. He came to me and he said, I'm having this recurring dream. I was like, do I want to know what it is? I didn't say champions were perfect, right? So they operate at the edge of their capabilities. And he said, I keep swimming and I look up at the scoreboard and I see 3:07 time, 3 minutes, 7 seconds. Well, if any of you know anything about swimming, that is not any swimming event time. We don't do 300s. 3:07 is not a time. And at the time, we were kind of getting close to Beijing, and the pressure was kind of mounting on everybody. And, sometimes as a coach, I just try to say something because I feel like I'll look like an idiot if I just say, okay. And then I usually say something and prove that I'm an idiot, but it's okay. In this case, I said, well, it's probably your 300 split in the 400 IM, because if you want to swim 4:03, you're probably going to be out at 3:07. Plausible. I can tell you that the hair stood up on my neck when I looked at the scoreboard in Beijing in the final at the 300 mark, and it said 3:07 flat. It stands up right now. I got goosebumps thinking about it. I don't think it's superhuman. I think it's somebody who has taken something to a level and gone beyond. And I think it's something we can all do. We can all visualize. And if we wanted to spend the time on it, you could get those kind of results. Michael wasn't dropped here from Mars. He's a human. He is more human than anybody in this room, I promise you, in many, many ways.
What is visualization? Visualization for swimming, I want my athletes to visualize themselves being in the venue where we're going to be. I want them to visualize it like they're actually swimming the race, what it'll look like. I want them to visualize like they're sitting in the stands watching themselves swim the race exactly the way they want it to go. And I want it to be as specific and as visceral as possible. I want them to smell the chlorine. I want them to see what everything's going to be like. I want them to imagine it in the most vivid way possible. You know why? Because the brain cannot distinguish between something that is vividly imagined and something that is real. So by the time my athletes step on those blocks when it matters, they have swum those races hundreds of times. And they don't have to think consciously about, gee, what am I going to do in this first 50? They've already rehearsed it 100 times. It's automatic. And that's when the body performs best, is when it's automatic, not when you're consciously thinking about things. Very, very important. I'm going to tell you a Michael visualization story. A couple of them. He got very good as a child. I taught him how to do this progressive relaxation technique. Have you ever done that where somebody reads to you and it says, clench your fist, tighter, tighter, that kind of, go your whole body. After about a week of doing that, his mom would do it before he went to bed. She'd just start reading and he'd fall asleep. Got very good at being relaxed. So then we said, okay, when you get yourself in a relaxed state before you fall asleep, let's start running the movie of your performances. And he would start doing that. He starts doing it for all these major meets. And there are a couple of those that really stick out with me. He came in before the Beijing Olympic Games and he said, I keep having this dream over and over. And I was like, do I really want to know this? And he said, yes. He said, I swim, I look up at the scoreboard, and the clock says 3:07. Well, if you're a swimmer, that's not a time. We don't swim 300s. It's not really any time that would kind of, maybe it could be a relay time in college, but not in the 50-meter pool. And, you know, sometimes as a coach, honestly, I just wanted him to shut up and go away. So I said, okay, that's probably your 300 split. That's probably your 300 split and your 400 IM. Because if you're going to do 403, you're going to be 307 at the 300. And he was like, oh, okay. And then he went away. I went on about my business. It's not always, you know, love all the time. We have things that we got to do. Well, I don't know how to describe how I felt in the final, the first final of the Beijing Olympics, when in the 400 IM at the 300 mark, I looked at the scoreboard and it said 307 flat. The hair stands up on my neck right now when I think about it. He is so powerful at visualizing, he was dreaming it. Your mind is a super powerful thing, guys. The more you exercise it, the better it gets, the better you get.
Hey, it's me, Law of Attraction Club. I want to let you know that I have made an awesome library on Patreon that contains many books on the law of attraction, the power of the mind, visualization, hypnosis, money, success, and much more. With our library, you can skip hours of searching for the right book and reading through them. All the resources you need to master the law of attraction are right here in one convenient location, and you will also be supporting this channel. If you want to join the Law of Attraction library, click the link in the description. Thank you.